Hi everybody, JJ here with Asus, and I'm excited to talk to you about the latest generation of Asus motherboards for the AMD AM5 based platform, specifically the new B850 based chipset. In this video, we're going to be talking about the latest generation of Asus AM5 B850 TUF Gaming Series based motherboards. We're going to be offering two motherboard models, one being an ATX based option and the other being a micro ATX based option. These boards are going to be a good choice for those of you who are going to be building maybe for the first time, maybe upgrading from an older platform, maybe have a more limited budget but aren't looking to compromise on core functions and features to really be able to offer you a great foundation for your next PC build. So the first thing before we jump into these boards is going to be, we want to talk a little bit about the chipsets themselves, help you understand where B850 sits in relation to AMD's chipset stack, and also give you a little bit of the base foundation in terms of what you can expect not only from the chipset, but then actually for the minimum set of specifications you're going to be getting on Asus's B850 series of motherboards, starting from the TUF Gaming ATX based models. So go ahead and first take a closer look at the actual chipsets that are going to be offered for AM5. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a closer look here at the four actual chipsets that are going to be offered as part of the 800 series. You've got the flagship X870E, then X870, B850, which we're going to be talking about, and then B840. Now, for the majority of users, B850 is going to be a great choice, and really you're only going to want to consider moving over to X870 if you're looking for a higher level of features, functions, and specifications, especially in regards to things like high-speed I/O, even more slot expansion, and more specialized designs that are introduced with higher-end chipsets and corresponding higher-end motherboard models. We'll talk a little bit more about this at the end of the video in terms of what might be reasons why you might want to maybe upgrade to X870. Now, taking a closer look at some of the base specifications as part of the chipset, you're going to actually really see that there's not a clear differential here in terms of designating really that you're going to get an inferior or lower level of performance or overall really functionality. Performance is pretty much going to be parity between B850 and X870, so you don't have to worry about that. CPU support is equivalent, so Ryzen 7000 series, 9000 series, or of course X3D series parts. You'll notice actually here that there does seem to be a differential in terms of the graphics card interconnect, where X870 denotes PCI Express Gen 5, and then for B850 it denotes PCI Express Gen 4. But actually there's an option for the motherboard vendor to be able to spec in Gen 5, and all the models that we're going to be talking about, they all actually have Gen 5 slots for that primary express graphics card slot. So you actually are pretty much getting parity experience in relation to X870 in that respect. They're all also going to have that at least one PCI Express Gen 5 by 4 link for the fastest M.2 based SSDs. 36 lanes, which is the same as X870, overclocking support for the CPU, overclocking support for the memory. And then you can see over here in terms of the I/O specification, this is where there's a little bit more of a differential, with probably one of the biggest ones being that, of course, X870 denotes essentially that you have to implement 40 gigabits, whereas of course it's an option on B850. But all of the B850 models that we're going to be talking about actually have support via a specialized header on the motherboard to add in a USB 4 add-in card if you want 40 gigabits, but actually all of them will have very high speed I/O, with everything coming with at least 120 gigabits port on the motherboard, which is 4 times faster than standard 5 gigabits USB 3 ports, so quite nice in that respect. So from there, let's go ahead and take a closer look at this board. So as I noted, we've got two motherboards that we're going to be talking about for the TUF Gaming B850 series based on motherboards, and the first one we're going to take a look at is going to be the TUF Gaming B850 Plus, which is going to be the ATX based motherboard. But before we go into that, I quickly want to set the foundation for the base specifications you're going to be getting on essentially both of these motherboards. Although we're setting these base specifications from the ATX perspective, but they're pretty much equal on even the micro ATX motherboard, which is pretty cool to see. So let's go ahead and take a look at that base set of specifications, and then we're going to take a closer look at the board. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about the minimum set of features, functions, and specifications that you're going to get on these TUF Gaming ATX-based motherboard. So when we go ahead and take a closer look at our list, we've got it broken down really clearly here. The first one's going to be that you're going to get guaranteed one PCI Express Gen 5 slot. That's predominantly going to be used for your graphics card, but you could utilize that for specialized add-in cards. You're going to get one PCI Express Gen 5 M.2 SSD slot. So that's going to be great for the fastest generation of M.2 SSDs, especially those ones where you might want to align it things with like direct storage, which is pretty cool for gaming. You're going to get at least three PCI NVMe M.2 SSD slots on the motherboard, and you're also going to have support for a Q-latch design, which is going to be for a faster, simpler, and easier way to be able to install your M.2 SSDs. We're going to demonstrate Q-latch as well as Q-release in a little bit. On the rear, you're going to get 10 USB ports on the rear, which is pretty nice, especially if you're coming up from older generational platforms where you might maybe only have 5, 6, 7 USB ports, and definitely far less number of high-speed ports. Again, this board has 20 gigabits, 10 gigabits, and 5 gigabits, quite a bit of high-speed based connectivity on this model. You're going to get guaranteed 20 gigabits USB-C, which is going to be on the rear, and then 10 gigabits internal USB-C, which is the internal header here, which is on the latest generation of chassis. You're going to have support for a USB 4 add-in card via specialized header, which is going to be on the motherboard at the bottom of the motherboard. You're going to have Wi-Fi 7 with our new Q antenna design, which we'll also demonstrate. It's going to offer for a faster, simpler, easier, and actually higher performing version for connection for your Wi-Fi antenna. You're also going to get included with that Bluetooth 5.4 support. 2.5 gigabit Ethernet with our actually LAN guard design, which helps to protect the actual Ethernet port from forms of damage. In addition to that, you're also going to have, in terms of all of your headers on the motherboard, you're going to get a brand new Super I/O controller that's on the motherboard, which gives more advanced controls. We'll talk a little bit more about that in terms of our 8-point fan control within the UEFI as well as within the operating system. But you've got 6 dedicated headers as well as an AIO pump header. And also do keep in mind that if really you're in a situation that you need more than 6 fan headers, you can multiplex 1 fan header to be able to support 2, 3, 4 fans. So you got a lot of flexibility to be able to run everything directly from the motherboard, whether you want to run it from the operating system or you want to run it from the UEFI BIOS. Rounding things out, the boards have been upgraded, and this is actually an upgrade from the prior generation, an 8-layer PCB versus a 6-layer PCB. This helps actually alongside the copper layering within the motherboard to improve thermal performance, but it also is going to give you better DRAM scaling performance. You've got your ProCool power connectors, which are thicker pins, which help to improve the overall amperage handling and help to actually reduce resistance. So that means you actually have lower temperatures for those connectors. QLED, which is a 4-segment LED that we have on the motherboard for the CPU, for the graphics card, for the boot device, and for DRAM. There's also a new feature that we call dim detect, which we recently introduced, which actually means that an LED will go off before you power on your system to indicate whether or not actually you have the primary memory module physically installed on the motherboard. So that's a cool little update. Full HD UEFI BIOS, so 1080p BIOS. It's much sharper, much clearer. Really, really nice to use. A brand new cube dashboard utility, which allows you to visually see the entire motherboard broken down in a really cool way in terms of all your slots and your ports. We'll actually show you an image of this a little bit later on. A new exciting feature that we call Asus AI Advisor, which actually allow you to use an advanced LLM application in Windows to be able to actually query information about your motherboards, about features, functions, and spec, and you can actually even control your motherboard from it. You could ask it a question like, how do I make my system quieter? And it would actually immediately be able to provide you a response, but actually even give you a hook to be able to engage your fan controls. So even if you don't know really anything about how to use your system, you could ask it questions and it can actually prompt you not only with more information, but it could potentially actually give you a hook, which would engage a control that you could go ahead and action in directly within the application. It's pretty cool. Of course, all of Asus products that have RGB support or support RGB products support Asus Aura Sync, which means you can synchronize all your RGB lighting, kind of like in the system that we have here next to me. That utilizes our Armory Crate software suite, which allows you to do a lot of really cool things in terms of system monitoring and RGB management. And we also have our brand new Driver Hub software, which is going to be an easy to use, very lightweight web-based utility for the installation of your drivers and your applications. So that's the minimum of what you're going to get. So let's physically take a closer look at this board. Okay, so here you can see the TUF Gaming B850 Plus Wi-Fi. It's got a really clean monochromatic design, which of course is going to readily complement the look and feel for the widest range of builds. That doesn't have any fixed colors to contend or compete with anything. It really is going to complement a wide range of our components. I would recommend something like our GT302 chassis, which I think would be great for this. We also have, of course, a wide range of other chassis, which would be great options, including maybe like the new A31, which I think would be another great choice. And we have a wide range of other supporting products, not only from our Prime series, but our TUF Gaming series and ROG and ROG Strict series of products that could also really complement this well. But let's go ahead and dive in a little bit more closely to the board and take a look at how everything stacks up, where things are located, and what you're going to want to keep in mind if you're going to be evaluating this board. Okay, so here you can see we've got our TUF Gaming B850 Plus Wi-Fi motherboard here laid down. So we're going to go ahead and take a closer look on it. One of the first things I want to go ahead and show you is going to be, you've got this really beautiful large VRM heatsink that we have here, which makes full contact with the power stages as well as with the inductors. This actually heatsink right here, this is all metal and it's actually an extended heatsink. So this entire IO shroud portion right here, this is all metal, this is all aluminum, and then actually goes down to a heatsink that goes down there. If I was actually to turn this, let me go ahead and prop this up here. you can actually see how large the heatsink assembly is. So it's a very large extended heatsink. You can also see how there's additional surface area helping to ensure great thermal performance for this VRM assembly. So as we take a closer look here at the board, you're going to see that you got your two EPS power connectors for the CPU with those thicker pins. So these are the ProCool power connectors that we talked about. Moving over, you can see that you've got your AIO pump header, which is going to be great for using things like, let's say, like our TUF Gaming LC2 series of AIOs or our Prime LC series of AIOs. Two CPU headers right here for the CPU optional in terms of your fan headers. You can multiplex that out though if you want to be able to support like a 360 AIO. You've got two ARGB headers that are going to be right here. Let me go ahead and just adjust that for you. Two ARGB headers, and you can also multiplex those. You can also see that you got your 4 LEDs right there. You're going to have one LED which is going to be for the CPU, one for the graphics, one for the DRAM, and one for the boot device. And also keep in mind that there's going to be a DRAM detect, which actually means that, take for instance, if I didn't have this DIMM installed, so it was actually a little bit raised, so right here you can actually see it's a little bit raised, it's not fully seated, that LED, even without powering on the system, would actually light up and let you know that there's an issue. And then once you actually fully lock it into place, then the actual LED would turn off. So it's a pretty cool feature that we have there. As we move down, of course, you got your 24-pin power connector. You've got your 10 gigabits internal USB-C. You have, of course, your legacy USB 3 right there. As we go ahead and move a little bit more down here, you're going to see one of the cool features that we have, which is going to be our Q-Release graphics card design implementation. So this is going to be a great option for those of you that want to be able to easily remove a graphics card. So in the past, you would have to kind of try to figure out how you can eject the graphics card. The nice thing is right here, you can see if I put in my current TUF Gaming graphics card, I've got it slotted in there. All I need to now do is just depress this, and I can remove the graphics card. So it's a really simple and easy way to be able to go ahead and remove your graphics card. From here, you've got one M.2 SSD slot, another M.2 SSD slot, another M.2 SSD slot. Now I'm actually going to go ahead and remove this because I want to quickly show you guys our Q latch design implementation. So let me go ahead and do that. Okay, the screws you'll also see are captive screws. That means that they won't fall off. You don't have to worry about that. You're good to go. So you can see right there, you've got your M.2 SSD slot. We also have this cool little rubber bumper that's in there. And the advantage of this little rubber bumper design is going to be that there's essentially less flex for the actual M.2 SSD installed, especially if it's a single-sided M.2 SSD, which many of them can be. But if I go ahead and install my M.2 SSD, in the past you might have an experience maybe having to use like a standoff, a small screw. It's a little bit more of a process to kind of get it all installed, but now literally all you do is just remove that heatsink, take your M.2 SSD, angle it in there, and you're going to depress it and it locks into place. Super easy, super simple. You can also see right here, I just depress that to go ahead and remove the M.2 SSD. So really easy, good to go. And that is actually going to be present on this M.2 SSD slot and this M.2 SSD slot. So again, you have 3 M.2 SSD slots on here, one being PCI Express Gen 5, and they all support that Q latch design. So you move a little bit more down on the motherboard here, you're going to see that you have 2 SATA ports. Then as we go over here, you're going to see that you've got 2 more SATA ports. So that's going to be 2, 4, so a total of 4 SATA ports on there. You're going to have 2 internal USB 2 ports. That's going to be great for things like RGB controllers, AIOs, things along those lines. You're going to have your internal USB 4 header port. So this is going to be specially designed for Asus USB 4 add-in cards. Got a COM port right there, another 3-pin ARGB header. So that will be a total of 3. Chassis fan header, and chassis fan header. So you've got quite a number of chassis fan headers that are going to be on this board, giving you a lot of flexibility to be able to connect all your fans and manage them directly from the UEFI BIOS. You also have one more chassis fan header, which I'm actually using right here, but there is another, so there's actually 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then if you remember, we counted the 2 all the way up here at the top. So that's going to be a total of 6. As we continue down here towards the bottom, we have, of course, our isolated audio design. This is the TUF Gaming audio codec, and it also includes audio-grade capacitors and a DTS audio suite. So quite nice. I will also note, too, that a pretty cool advantage of our design. So this isn't the biggest graphics card we make, but even if you go to a larger graphics card, one thing that you'll actually appreciate is that even when you were going with something like, let's say, our 4090, which our 4090 would even extend further down, these actual two M.2 SSD slots would not be blocked. So that means that even if this was installed in your system, you wouldn't actually have to remove the graphics card, even though it's quite easy because of this design to be able to install two M.2 SSDs. So I really appreciate actually how we have this laid out, still giving you good accessibility to those two slots. So from here, let's go ahead and take a look at the rear I/O. So taking a look here at the rear I/O, you can see you've got HDMI and DP because newest generation of Ryzen series processors do include integrated Radeon-based graphics, so you can go ahead and use that if you don't want to use a discrete graphics card. You then have two 10 gigabit ports, so these are going to, of course, be 2 times as fast as your standard 5 gigabit USB 3 ports. And then below that, you have two USB 2 ports. One of these is also going to be for supporting our USB BIOS flashback design, which if we go over here, you're going to see this button. This will actually allow you to use this port in conjunction with this button. No CPU, no memory, no graphics card installed, just connect your power supply, and you can low-level update the UEFI BIOS. You then have a 2.5 gigabit Ethernet port in there. That is also going to support some our LAN guard design, which will help to protect the port from surges, spikes, sags, things along those lines. A USB-C 20 gigabit port, that's going to be 4 times faster than these ports right here, and 2 times faster than these ports right here. So 20 gigabits, another 10 gigabit port, and then 4 5 gigabit ports. So that's going to be a total of 2, 2, and 4. So that's 8 high-speed ports with only 2 USB 2 ports. Pretty nice. From there, you're going to have Wi-Fi 7. This is going to be 160 megahertz Wi-Fi 7. Really nice. You can have true multi-gigabit wireless throughput with this, very low latency. Also supports our Q antenna design in a nice software package. And then you got your multi-channel audio output. I will also note right here that for the antenna design, this is our newer antenna design, which is called Q antenna. This is a push-fit based design. It's not actually a threaded screw anymore. So all you need to do is literally just click those into place and you're good to go. It's a really simple and fast, easy way that actually reduces the likelihood of you having to kind of have tangled cables, also very easy to disconnect, and actually also improves the attenuation performance for the actual Wi-Fi controller and for Bluetooth as well. And if you then want to remove, just gently tug on them and you can pull them right out. So that's going to be the Q antenna design, and that covers all of our rear I/O on this TUF Gaming B850 plus Wi-Fi. So that wraps up our initial detailing on the ATX-based motherboard. Let's go ahead and take a closer look now at this guy right here, the micro ATX-based motherboard. So the micro ATX board is going to be the TUF Gaming B850M. That M is going to be denoting that it's a micro ATX-based motherboard. You're going to see that essentially it's a $10 price reduction compared to the $229 that is coming in for the ATX-based board. This is going to be a fantastic option for those who want to be able to a medium form factor board build. I would strongly recommend you check out our Prime AP201 chassis or our Prime A21 chassis. Great options, no riser cables, outstanding airflow, lots of flexibility in terms of what you can fit into the units. You can fit in the largest base graphics cards. You can fit in 360 millimeter AIO cooling solutions like our Prime or TUF Gaming LC series or our RG Strix series. Really great chassis. But let's go ahead and take a closer look at this board. So you see that we offer the TUF Gaming B850M in two variants, a Wi-Fi and a non-Wi-Fi model. The model that we're going to be focusing on is going to be the Wi-Fi based version, as that's what we're going to be focusing on in the North American region. So let's go ahead and take a closer look at the TUF Gaming B850M plus Wi-Fi. Okay, so here you can see that we've gone ahead and laid out our TUF Gaming B850M. Plus Wi-Fi. This is going to be, again, the Wi-Fi version of the micro ATX-based motherboard. It's going to look very, very similar, just a more compact-based motherboard. So let's go ahead and run through it. You can see, again, you've got that large extended VRM heatsink. It's the same thing. This entire, actually, portion of lumen that even extends over here onto this side is all going to be part of the actual VRM heatsink. Makes direct contact with the VRM, so the power stages, as well as actually the inductors, or what is sometimes referred to as the chokes. So you're going to get great, stable, reliable power delivery. Doesn't matter whether you're running 7000 series, 9000 series. You can be running a 9950X in here and it would be entirely fine. Any X3D series part, you're going to have a stable and reliable, very performant base board. You've got dual 8-pin PCI Express power, dual 8-pin EPS power connectors. And these are going to also support our ProCool power connection design. So those just mean thicker pins. In terms of the actual connections on the board here for the headers, you have your AIO header, which is going to be great for, again, our AIO coolers or any type of AI cooler that needs direct power from the motherboard. Two actually fan headers right here, so a CPU and a CPU optional. That's going to be great for, again, 240 millimeter base AIO solutions, as well as maybe a push and pull fan configuration on a tower heatsink. You can multiplex one of these headers out so they can readily support a 360 millimeter based AIO if that's what you want to go with as well. You've got then here 3 ARGB headers. Those can also be multiplexes if you really need more ARGB connectivity. 24-pin power connector right there. You've got your internal USB-C header, legacy USB 3, and you've got another chassis fan header right here. So make sure to note that. Again, we've got 2 CPU fan headers, and then we've got 1 chassis fan header. So we move a little bit more down on the board. We're going to see right here 4 slots, of course. The board is fully spec'd and pretty much have the same type of DRAM performance that you can expect on the ATX-based version. So you can readily run, your 6000, 62, 6400, or if you even want to go faster speeds, we have validated actually much faster speeds over 7000 MT. Is not an issue if you do want to be able to run that as well. You have, of course, the Q release design, so easy eject that graphics card. Again, as a quick demo, just install my graphics card right here. It will lock into place, and then if I want to be able to remove my graphics card, all I need to do is to press that, and I can pull the graphics card out. Really, really nice and easy design right there. You're going to have your SATA ports. There's going to be 4 SATA ports. They're also right angle, which is going to be probably a little bit more ideal in this medium form factor based build. As we move down to the bottom of the board, we're going to see right here USB header. This is going to be USB 2 and then another USB 2 header. So this is 1 port and then essentially 2 ports right there. So this is a total of 3 ports. So you're going to have COM port, then you're going to have 1 PCI Express Gen 5 M.2 SSD with the Q latch design that we already demoed on the ATX board. So that's that easy installation. Another 2 M.2 SSDs that can also be supported on here. They're going to be PCI Express Gen 4. So that's going to be essentially a total of 3 M.2 SSDs that can be supported on this one. From there, you also have another chassis fan header and another chassis fan header. So that's going to be 1, 2, and then 3. So that's 3 plus these 2 is going to give you a total of 5, plus the AIO pump header that's going to be on there. The isolated audio design with the TUF gaming audio codec, the audio grade capacitors, and the DTS audio suite. So that is going to round up the physical elements here on the board. Let's go ahead and take a look at the rear IO. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look here at the rear IO that we're going to have on this board. We have HDMI and DP. Again, if you want to be able to utilize the integrated graphics cores that come on your Ryzen series CPUs, as it is present in the latest generation 7000 and 9000 series, you're going to have 4 Type A ports that are going to be USB 2. One of those is also going to support the USB BIOS flashback, which of course, if you use with this button, will allow you to low-level update the UEFI BIOS firmware. No CPU, no DRAM, no graphics card installed. You just have to connect to the power supply and install the file on this flash drive, and then hold down this button, and you will be able to low-level update it. From there, you've got 2 10 gigabit ports that are going to be Type A, 2.5 gigabit Ethernet, which will also support our land guard design. Again, help to protect it from surges, spikes, sags, things along those lines. 20 gigabits USB-C, that's going to be 2 times as fast as these 10 gigabit ports, and it's going to be 4 times as fast as the 5 gigabit Type A ports. So again, quite a bit of I/O. If you actually take a look at the totality here with these 5 gigabit ports, where you're going to have 4 of them, 3 10 gigabit ports, and then 1 20 gigabit, that's going to be 4, that's going to be 4, that's going to be 8, 10, 12. So 12 sets of USB ports on the rear is quite nice. Plus, you still have your internal ports on the motherboard. So it's a very healthy motherboard in terms of the total I/O spec. Then you've got Wi-Fi 6E, not Wi-Fi 7, but this will still support multi-gigabit speed. You can easily exceed 1 gigabit. Actually, with a very good quality router from us, whether it's Wi-Fi 6E or Wi-Fi 7 router, you could be seeing actually speeds in excess of 1.5 gigabits with Wi-Fi 6E connectivity, very low latency. It's a really great option, and you also get still that latest generation Bluetooth specification as well. This is also going to be that Q antenna design, so that means that very, very simple and very easy to be able to connect the antennas. Just a simple push fit design as well, still on this model, so really easy to use. And then you get your multi-channel audio. So that is going to round out the rear I/O on this board. Okay, so that pretty much wraps up the overview that we have on these two motherboards, great options again for ATX and micro ATX. The next thing we want to talk a little bit about are there going to be some of the great options that might be overlooked sometimes in reviews or in overviews, which are going to be some of the great features that you can't immediately see on the high level when you're just looking at the motherboard. And these are going to be part of either the firmware or the software experience. So let's actually take a closer look at some of the really cool features you're going to have on the UEFI BIOS side. And then from there, a little bit on the software side. And then we're actually going to talk a little bit about how this compares to maybe the prior generation, if maybe you want to contrast this against a B650, as well as also you might want to compare against an X870, and then we'll wrap things up. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about the Asus UEFI BIOS features that you're going to find on these. And some of these are going to be maybe features or functions you may be already aware of in the past, and some of them are going to be entirely brand new that we introduced for the 800 series based chipset. So the first one is just going to be, of course, the classic easy mode interface. If you're a first-time builder, you're going to be greeted with this interface that allows you to really quickly and easily see all of the aspects for your system, including things like your temperatures, your primary voltages, whether your DRAM's detected, its operating speed, your primary storage device, if you need to quickly enable AMP or Expo for your DRAM, fan controls, as well as representation that those actual fans are connected to the corresponding headers, and then boot order. So it's really great, and also, of course, has now been displayed in 1080p, so full HD BIOS, so it's really nice and sharp and clear. If we dive a little bit deeper, though, there's going to be some cool updates that we've gone ahead and introduced. One of them is going to be the Asus My Hotkey. This actually means now F3 and F4 are going to default to being able to boot directly into the UEFI BIOS. So for those of you that actually are going to be updating your UEFI BIOS, you don't actually have to go through and hit that kind of delete and then actually go into the tools, load that all up. You can pretty much boot directly into the Easy Flash interface, so it's a much quicker process. You also have the ability to boot directly to a USB drive if maybe you want to be able to run things like memtest, or if you want to actually be able to boot into an operating system or another type of bootable volume, but you can actually remap these to different functions. So it's a cool level of functionality that we've gone ahead and introduced. We're also introducing a brand new Super I/O controller with new level of fan controls. In the prior generation, we only had a 4-point fan curve, and now we actually have an 8-point fan curve. Especially now with the newer generation of fans that are going over, 1600 RPM, you're going into 1800, 2000, 2500, even 3000 RPM. Having more points essentially allows for more granularity and control in how you can tune your fans. And of course, we still have our calibration and profiling based option, which means it can automatically detect how fast those fans are spinning and allow you to easily quickly set profiles such as like silent or turbo or a manual custom fan curve if you want. But again, an 8-point fan curve. This is within the UEFI BIOS, which means you don't have to use any software, but of course we offer the same level of control within the operating system as well. A really cool feature that we've now introduced is going to be called Q Dashboard. This you can see is a visual map of the actual motherboard and allows you to actually see which ports are actually being utilized. So you physically know how that port is actually got something installed, or that slot actually has something installed. So you can see right here, it's noting that, hey, that memory's been installed, the CPU's installed, the CPU fan is connected to that corresponding header, and you can actually even click that corresponding header and it will take you directly to the fan controls. So it's a really useful and visual way to be able to kind of get a sense of everything that's going on. And if you don't know where certain controls are located, you can very easily just go to this Q Dashboard interface, and then it will take you to the corresponding controls for those corresponding ports or slots. Moving beyond that, for those that care about maybe performance tuning, Asus continues to offer a really awesome range of options in this respect. So one of them is going to be PBO. Many of you are probably familiar with Precision Boost Overdrive. It's AMD's kind of easy performance tuning toggle that you can enable. The tricky part is that sometimes to really get the best experience from it, you do optimally want to tune certain elements of it specific to the actual design of the motherboard. And that can be a little bit challenging to kind of know. Some people don't know what TDC to enable, what EDC levels to enable, and many other parameters. Plus, it can actually also increase temperatures. That's because it's more opportunistically attempting to boost the behavior of the CPU. The great thing is here is that we can kind of pretty much tune everything in relation to the motherboard for you, and also already define a temperature target. So that means if you want to make sure that it's not breaching that temperature target, then you can still get kind of that increase in performance and just pick the temperature target that you want. So the default is 80, but you can see you can go up to 90, and then you can also pick 70. My recommendation is actually 90, just because you're generally not going to see that. That's going to be pretty much only in the kind of most extreme scenarios with multi-threaded workloads, especially for gaming. You wouldn't see those type of temperatures, but that's just the maximum target that you're setting. Keep in mind that's still actually below the thermal junction target for the CPU, but you have that flexibility. You can pick whichever one you want. We also have some additional options there, which actually do some optimizations in terms of how some of the boosting characteristics happen, resident to the load policy, which one of these, which kind of is more optimally suited for kind of more lightly threaded or moderately threaded applications, is going to be medium load boosted, which you can also toggle on. You're also going to have new options that we've introduced specifically for actually gaming, with essentially now 2 new types of processors, not only with X3D series processors, but CPUs that also have multiple CCDs and different types of actually designs. There can actually be kind of different tunings that can provide you a benefit in terms of a gaming experience. And so we've actually done that work for you, where we've kind of done some tunings here to be able to maximize gaming performance. So this is another way that you can get better performance from your system by just toggling something on. So you'll find this as a new feature that we've introduced called Core Tunings for gaming, and you have a couple of different options right there. And last but not least here, we also have Turbo Game Mode, which is brand new, been introduced really specifically for X3D series CPUs, although it can be advantageous for multiple CCD-based series CPUs. There is a little bit more that you want to keep in mind for this, because in some situations it actually can reduce performance, but in other situations it can actually improve performance. So do be mindful of that. That's something that you actually might want to just try out and see how it benefits you, or potentially doesn't benefit you, depending on your workload or depending on your game that you're going to be playing. All right, so now that covers some of the really cool features you're going to see on the UEFI BIOS side, do also keep in mind that, as we noted, we have a really great feature that we have with Asus AI Advisor, as well as with another one called Driver Hub. With Asus AI Advisor, I think the really cool thing that you're going to find about this application is going to be that it's a really easy way to be able to learn a little bit more about your motherboard and to be able to actually control certain parameters by just asking it questions. Again, you can ask it a question like, hey, how do I make my system quieter? And you'll actually be able to see a response that will actually present you with fan controls, or can you actually help me enable my actual XMP profile or my Expo-based profile for your memory, things along those lines. So the cool thing is that we'll continue to actually evolve the functionality over time, because it is a web-based model, and it's also very highly accurate, leveraging not only ChatGPT, but some special actually algorithmic work that we're doing in terms of actually some resource data that we're providing in to be able to give it to you really intelligent and actually targeted responses based on Asus hardware features, functions, and specs. So a great feature that we strongly recommend you try out. And Driver Hub is a great utility. Again, ultra lightweight. It's actually less than about 4 megabytes. Launches in your web browser, allows you to scan your system. It will first actually offer you to install the Ethernet driver for your system, get you connected, and then from there be able to download all your other drivers, as well as also download any corresponding utilities. You don't have to actually go to the product page or do anything like that. It'll take care of that entire thing for you. So great option in terms of that. So next question is that I think some of you guys, if you take a look at the price, the actual price is only $10. If we actually compare this motherboard is coming in at $229, and the prior B650 model came in actually $219. Of course, now B650 has come down a little bit over time. That's normal. Generally, over time, you'll see the MSRP pricing on products start to drop off a little bit. But overall, if we took at actually the launch and actually the first few months, it's only a $10 price delta between the B650 based model that this is replacing. So in that respect, what would you actually be getting? What's the upgrade? Now, the vast majority of you are not going to be coming from B650 to B850. Those are great motherboards. They all have received UEFI BIOS support to be able to support the latest generation CPUs. So this is really going to be more of a question for those of you who might be considering coming from an older platform. Maybe you're still on AM4, maybe you're on AM3, maybe you're on an older generation Intel-based platform, and you want to be able to get a lot of new functions, features, specs, and performance that is going to be offered by these new platforms. But maybe you're considering B650 still, and you might want to get, well, what do I get for that kind of delta? So let's go ahead and take a look at kind of, again, that $10 price delta that we have comparatively from the MSRP of the B650 model to this model. One, you're going to get an upgraded power delivery design. The secondary item is going to be that this is going to be an 8-layer PCB versus a 6-layer PCB. It's going to generally also have better DRAM scaling. That still does have some dependency on the memory controller, but you're overall going to generally see better DDR5 overclocking support. You're going to have a PCI Express Gen 5 slot, so that slot right there is going to be PCI Express Gen 5. That internal USB-C header that's going to be on the motherboard is going to be a 10 gigabit versus a 5 gigabit. You've got that Wi-Fi 7 controller on there along with the Q antenna design, so that easy design. The M.2 SSD slots, all of those are going to be that Q latch design that we talked about, whereas only some of those are going to be Q latch on the prior generation. In addition to that, you also are going to get the Q release, so that really nice easy ejection design that we have for the graphics card is going to be on this model. You've got dual 8-pin versus a 4 and 8-pin design in the prior, which was still entirely fine, but again, this is an upgraded differential. Fan controls are going to be superior here. Again, prior generation was a 4-point. This is going to be an 8-point fan control. There's more I/O, so this board is going to have 10 ports versus the prior generation was 8 ports. And on top of that, again, only 2 of these ports are going to be USB 2. On the prior generation, there was actually more USB 2 ports. So you're not only getting more ports, but you're also getting higher speed ports as well. You get the QLED with the dim detect design, and then you get all those kind of new UEFI BIOS options with things like the Q dashboard, the full HD UEFI BIOS, the My Hotkey, and some of those other items. So a lot of really cool features and functions, and a lot of hardware-based designs. For I think that small price increase, it's totally worth it. Okay, so let's go ahead and round things out here in this overview video and talk about X870. So some of you might be wondering whether it might make sense to maybe go to an X870 based motherboard. We have a fantastic TUF Gaming X870 based model, which is kind of like our starting point on the X870 side, although we do also have a Prime X870P model, which is actually also a very solid offering as well. And really, for the most part, I would say that for the vast majority of you, unless you specifically really want, let's say, I think a greater number of, let's say, M.2 slots, so that motherboard is going to offer, let's say, 4 ports, or it's going to offer 40 gigabits connectivity, or it's going to offer more I/O. Those are going to be the areas you're going to look at. Generally, as a whole, I'd say the 3 key areas that you will generally notice as you move into X870 is going to be 1, you're going to get more M.2 slots. 2, you'll get higher spec I/O because you're going to get that 40 gigabits at a minimum. You're generally going to get more USB ports, although again, this one is quite good in this respect. You'll generally get also faster I/O as a whole. And then also supplemental, there will be specialized kind of features and functions that will become to be more advanced, especially as you start to move into the higher tier of motherboards. Especially if you go into the ROG Strix series or you go into the formal ROG series, you're going to get a lot more specialized functions and features, but you're going to considerably be increasing the cost as well. So overall, a great foundation for first-time builders, for upgraders, for seasoned enthusiasts. But X870 is a great option. And if you want more information, check out our full overview videos on those series of motherboards. Okay, so that wraps up our overview on these 2 TUF Gaming B850 series motherboards. If you guys have any more questions, comments, or concerns, feel free to go ahead and drop them down in the comment section, and we'll do our best to go ahead and follow up with some insights or guidance or responses in regards to those questions. I'd also recommend that if you haven't joined, make sure to consider joining our PCDIY Heartbeat community. It's a fantastic community of fellow PCDIY enthusiasts where you can get all types of questions answered, not only from fellow builders, but also from Asus representatives as well. So if you want to find out about the latest functions, features, specifications, boards, build guides, insights in terms of performance tuning, and so much more, it's an amazing community. You'll find the link in the description down below. Make sure to go ahead and check that out. So with that, make sure to go ahead and leave us a like and subscribe, and take care and take it easy, and best of luck with your build.